This is the story of how my father escaped the World Trade Center attacks on September 11th, 2001. Although I wasn't born yet, or even a figment of my parents' imagination at the time, I've heard my parents retell the events of that day many times, and each year on the anniversary, we remember those who were lost that day. In 2001, my parents were fresh out of college and engaged to be married. My father was offered a job with Morgan Stanley, and they moved to Hoboken, New Jersey, excited to begin this next chapter of their life. My mother was fortunate to get a job in northern New Jersey, which was 2 hours from Hoboken, so they soon moved to Montclair, New Jersey. Having only one car each morning, my mother would drop my father off at the train station before driving an hour to her work. He would then begin his daily commute to 250 Vesey Street, better known as the World Trade Center. My father worked in the South Tower, also known as Tower 2. Tower 2 has 110 floors, and he worked more than halfway up on the 60th floor.
September 11, 2001 started off as a morning like any other. The sun was shining and it was looking to be a beautiful day. My father started work at 7 a.m. It was business as usual. Little did he know, nearly an hour later, 2 planes from Boston would begin their takeoff with terrorist hijackers on board. At 8:46 a.m., everyone in his office ran down to the windows, unaware that a plane had just hit the North Tower next door. They saw what looked like confetti raining down from the sky. Then an announcement came over the loudspeaker. "Remain at your desk, our building is secure." The phone stopped working, but word of the crash was traveling around quickly. As soon as my father found out, he knew this wasn't an accident. He knew it was an attack, and he feared they would try to attack his building next. He quickly made his way out to the elevators, only to find that they were shut off, which meant the only way out would be by walking down 60 flights of stairs. Before beginning the trek down all those flights of stairs, he told Charles, the floor security guard, what happened and told him to come with him. Charles started to, but then quickly turned back. He wanted to remain at his post in case anyone needed him. As you can imagine, walking down 60 flights of stairs takes a lot of time. Just as he made it downstairs and took 2 steps out the door and onto the streets, he watched United Airlines Flight 175 crashed into his building right above his head. 2 women were standing right next to him, unable to move from shock. He grabbed them and quickly pushed them into the side of the building, which had a small concrete overhang that he hoped might protect them. He knew they didn't stand a chance against the debris that would begin falling. As he shielded the women with his body, he closed his eyes, pushing them hard against the building. The crashing around them and the screams were all that could be heard. After what seemed like an eternity, it was time to reassess. He decided to go back into the building. It was really the only safe thing to do. People had started jumping out of the building, and the debris falling was too dangerous.
Not knowing that a plane had crashed into their building, the security guards inside began barricading the doors and telling everyone not to leave due to the dangerous situation. My father was worried more attacks were to come and that he had to get out of there as quickly as possible. When other workers found out they were being locked inside, they decided to charge the doors with my father. It worked, and they made it out. He began running as fast as he could, when suddenly he heard screaming again, and when he turned to look back, he saw his building, Tower 2, was crumbling and falling. He had made it out just in time, and less than 1 hour after his tower was attacked, it collapsed. He didn't know what to do or where to go, so he decided that he had to get out of the city as quickly as possible. He made his way to the water where the ferries were running. He was covered in glass and debris. A man turned to him and asked, "Where were you?" He said, "The 60th floor of Tower 2. The man hugged him and said, "I'm talking to a ghost right now. You shouldn't be here, man." The ride home was long and the sky filled with heavy smoke as the fallen tower still burned in the distance. My mother had no idea if my father was dead or alive. She arrived at work at 8 a.m. and received calls from family members shortly after each tower was hit. But when she tried to call him at work, the only message she got was,
"We're sorry, all circuits are busy now. Will you please try your call again later? Thank you."
She decided to leave work not knowing what to do. She drove home bursting into tears as she got into the Garden State Parkway and seeing the towers in the distance. At home, the phones weren't working there either. She decided to go to the train station, the same station where she usually picked him up every night from work. She'd wait there all day clutching her cell phone, hoping he'd call or just walk off a train. After what seemed like an eternity, and about 30 trains later, a train pulled into the station at 3:30 p.m., nearly 7 hours after the attacks began. She watched as a handful of people exited the train. She didn't recognize any of them, but a man in a white t-shirt covered in white dust began walking towards her. He had a ripped-up button-down shirt over his shoulder, and as he ran his fingers through his hair, some of the dust fell off, and she could see his dark brown hair underneath. It was him. They hugged and sat in the car in silence, not really knowing exactly what just happened or what was to come. The shock was intense. They'd spend the next week watching the news, trying to figure out what to do next. The funerals and memorial services will be overwhelming. Friends and acquaintances lost. Charles, the security guard, had never made it out, and his body would never be found. Life as they knew it was forever changed on that day. We remain forever grateful that he made it out, and we will never forget those who were not as fortunate. So this September 11th, we ask you to never forget those who lost their lives, to honor the heroes who gave all, and to remember the families who grieve for their loved ones they lost. In memory, today and always, we will never forget.